right. Hello and welcome, Just a Family. This is giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV, as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I am an identity coach, spiritual teacher, business mentor, as well as creator and founder of not only Just the Live TV, but also the Women Supporting Women Can Network. So today's sponsor, we have a Phoenix Identity. They are offering you, if you're truly ready to get rid of the noise, reclaim your identity, and want to feel like you're in control of your own life, go check them out. They have a clarity session that is regular $149. With the coupon code Clarity1, you are able to get their clarity session for $97 and start feeling like you're in control of your life and that you can be making progress to your mental health, your happiness, and your well-being. So go and check that out. Link in the description. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about reclaiming yourself by removing the noise. And both Parul and I hope I said that, pronounced that properly. Yeah. We both have experienced this. We both work with this. So who better to bring this knowledge than us? So I'm going to hand it over to my guest to introduce themselves. Parul, would you do the honors?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. I do want to start by saying thanks a lot for having me here and for obviously creating this platform for people to be coming over and sharing their stories. I think it's brilliant. I am a Soulful Confidence Coach, and I work with women in helping them connect with their true essence, their innate self-worth, their inner self-power, and create unshakable confidence from the inside out. So when I say soulful confidence, my work is around mindset, energetic, soul shifts with stuff like tapping, somatic healing, breath work, like yogic principles, all of these things. And so it's not just like your fake it till you make it kind of confidence tips and tricks, but it's really creating the change from the inside out.
And that's so important. We should. And I don't think enough people understand that your emotional health and your happiness, really just in general, your happiness, whether it's your life, your relationship, your finances, your business, your career, your happiness in your life starts within yourself. A lot of people will say, oh, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when this happens. Yeah. I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when I'm successful. That doesn't work. And a lot of people believe that's the progression, and it's really not. And I'm going to quickly go into that. When it comes to being happy when, so let's say I say, oh, I'm going to be happy when I lose 20 pounds. And I get to that point that I lose 20 pounds, I'm happy at that point because I've accomplished a goal. Absolutely, you're going to be happy at that point. But what's going to end up happening is if you're not already happy within yourself, you're going to find something else that you're not going to be happy about. Well, now I have to go, do shopping and try on all these clothes because now I don't fit my clothing. We're always going to find something else that we don't like. And that's not confidence. That's trying to find your happiness in an outside source.
Totally, exactly. So that's literally, it's like, I call it outsourcing your happiness. That's what when I work with clients, that's what I say. And also it does two things. So one is that you're really always depending on something external to happen to gratify you. And second, you're never really living in the present, because then you're constantly waiting for something else to happen to make you happy, to make you feel good, to make you feel confident or happy in some way, which is something that's completely outside you. It is also outside your control in a way that, because yes, for example, you might want to lose 20 pounds, but what if your goal is, it's like you're there, you're getting there, but then you're not really enjoying the journey. And then you get there and you're like, oh, now what? So you're not feeling confident in the now. You're not feeling confident in that journey. And you're waiting for that thing to make you feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. The progression that I find when we're young, we experience all this stuff. Our biggest confidence, the biggest years where we create our confidence are our pre and early teens. Those 10 years, from maybe the age of 8 to the age of 18, even higher. That 10-year period is some of our most transformational. That is, you know, any trauma that we experience, any peer pressure that we experience, bullying, all of the stuff that we experience during that lifetime, during that span of our life. That's when we start to create our confidence. That's when we start to create our idea of who we are, what we like, what we don't like, you know. And during that time, we're going through puberty. We're going through peer pressure. We're going through change in schooling, change in friendships. We're learning how to cope during that entire time frame of our school age years. And what happens is we build these beliefs, right? You see, if your parents get divorced, if your friends decide that they don't want to be your friend anymore because you've now gone to drugs and alcohol, or you don't want to be their friends anymore because all they think about is girls and sex, whatever that looks like, we start to create beliefs. Now, if you've had childhood trauma, you'll create beliefs in order to protect yourself. The attitude, the aggression, the standoffishness, the aloneness that we feel at that time. And we create those beliefs. What ends up happening is, as adults, we're still living on those beliefs, right? We're still making decisions based on those beliefs. We're still making our plan and our path, and any action or reactions that we take are based on those beliefs. That's the noise. That's the noise.
Yes, exactly. And you've explained all of that so well. And also, like, for anyone listening, I'm like, you can really see how much and how big is that noise. It's like, when in life did you get a chance to choose your beliefs, to choose your experiences, to choose to create your reality, until you become aware of the fact that, oh my God, like I am still living in survival to the response of the trauma that happened to me when I was a child, or when I was younger, or the bullying that happened, or, you know, like in any way that, whether you were like emotionally not treated well by parents, or, you know, cultural narratives, or something happened to you while growing up. Even like in relationships, there can be different levels and degrees of trauma. So this is exactly why it's so important for us to stop, recalibrate, and begin to take our power back from all of these things. And, you know, be very mindful about what is the kind of life that you want to create. How do you want to show up? What are the beliefs that are serving you, and what are the beliefs that are not serving you? Even stopping and thinking about, like, trauma, I only uncovered it like 2 years ago, that what happened to me in my childhood and while growing up was actually a form of trauma, because I grew up with the narratives that I'd lost my mom when I was 11 years old, and then my dad was really, really like just emotionally abusive, controlling. There was like obviously physical abuse also. So in all of that, I just grew up thinking that, oh, I'm strong, and so what? I still had a decent upbringing, and this is all fine. But when I started doing the work, I started realizing that there was just so much fear, anxiety, so many, you know, beliefs about wanting to please other people, or asking for permission, or wanting to be liked by other people, because that was me constantly trying to do as a child for my dad. So this is just an example of, you know, how these things that happen, they shape our personality. So then, or shape our life. So then when we start to become aware, or when we have the power, we can choose to bring it all back and change these beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the perception. And I'm glad that you said, as you were growing up, it was the, you know, I wasn't traumatized. It made me stronger. There are people who fight that. That's the end result. The end result. So I was talking the other day to one of our guests about the process, right? And not a lot of people want to hear the process, but I'm going to tell you anyway. When you have limiting beliefs or trauma beliefs from your childhood, and you carry those into adulthood, a lot of people don't realize that they're holding on to that trauma. So you held on to the trauma and the beliefs but you had already had the perception that that made you stronger, but you didn't process the belief. There is a process that we need to go through. And the process is that you don't go back and relive or rehash what happened, but you do vocalize it, right? This happened a lot. So for my own coaching, and this is just the process. So my own coaching, what I take my clients through is, how are you unhappy right now? If you're unhappy right now, that relates to something else. That relates to an unaligned belief, that relates to trauma, that relates to not feeling like you're in control, or that you have a good claim on who you are and what matters to you. And so what I do is I'm like, okay, let's figure out what caused it. And then we go back and we look at all the little things that led up to where you are now. And we say, you survived that though, right? You're still holding on to the trauma. You don't need that trauma. You don't need to protect yourself from that trauma anymore. Let's get rid of those beliefs that don't work for you and create some that do, while not necessarily thanking that trauma, because it isn't about being grateful for the trauma. It isn't about, the fact is that every single one of us goes through trauma. Every single one of us. None of us are exempt from these conditions and traumas and issues that we grew up. None of us are exempt. So while I don't wish trauma on anyone, I've made it my focus to change the way we look at that trauma, because we're all going to experience it.
Totally.
It just depends on how we look at it.
100%. Right? Completely agree with you. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
One of my, I coined a term a few years ago, and it is, there's two. The first one is that your emotions create your reality, but your mindset creates your emotions. Your emotional health is directly created by the beliefs you hold in your mindset. The second one is that negativity is the catalyst to positive growth. And that is exactly what it is. I don't wish negativity on anyone, but negativity is what springboards you forward into being stronger, smarter, wiser, strong, more confident once you process the trauma.
Completely. And just to add to that, it's just another way of looking at the phrase that trauma is your teacher. And till the time I started processing my trauma, I grew up believing that, this has made me strong. But at the same time, under that belief was suppression of all the grief. Like, I had never grieved the loss of my mom till last year. And that's like 24 years of living with that, like with that loss and grief and whatever, or like of the little child in me who lost her mom. And I was just never taught how to process it, how to deal with that. And all I ever heard was, you have to be strong and you have to look after your siblings, look after your dad, look after whatever, be a good girl, do well, make mom proud. So with all of those things, I thought processing my emotions was weak. I thought being feminine was weak. And I was always trying to go, do, and not really ever, like, even if I would cry, I would hide and fight back those tears. So now, it's like, what I'm trying to say is that these are the narratives that go around us. So then we don't look at trauma or our emotions or healing and feeling these things in a positive light. But when things like these happen to you, when anything, it's like our mind expands, our capacity to feel and also to think beyond a certain level expands when we're in a challenging situation. That's why we push ourselves at work. We love challenge. We love the whole competition and doing well and stuff, right? So it's similar to that in a way that it's not positive at all. But when you go through trauma, it's actually happening to teach you things, and it is expanding your capacity. It expanded my capacity to be able to deal with other adversities. But what is really important is that instead of suppressing it, because then those suppressed emotions and feelings actually just lead to resentments, outbursts, all of these things later, even like diseases later in life, because they're actually just getting accumulated in our body. which is why it's so important to spread the awareness around the fact that all of us are going through some sort of trauma. Like if you've not had the kind of trauma that I had, you've probably had your level of trauma from heartbreak, or from being cheated on, or different things, or being bullied in school. So then getting that awareness, spreading that awareness, and being willing to do that work on yourself. And this is where stuff like somatic healing comes in, mindset work comes in, working with coaches comes in, because this helps you look at the fact that it's okay to feel, and it's okay to, and it's actually not okay, but it's very important to heal yourself. As it's as important as, like, we think going to the gym is important, and obviously your work is important, but I actually think that investing in your healing and in this work, in your mindset, is equally as important.
I 1,000% agree, which is one of the main reasons I help people do that, and you help people do that, right? Is because we do find the value and the need for it. There are so many people who are struggling with their mental and emotional health, and they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to process that healing and just give space for that healing. So first thing I want to mention for everybody watching or catching the replay is it is okay not to be okay.
Totally.
It is
yes,
absolutely okay to be wherever it is that you're at right now. I want to go into some of the signs that you have unprocessed trauma, or you've got unprocessed or even limiting beliefs that are holding you back. So let's talk about what is the noise. The noise is shame, guilt, vulnerability, lack of confidence, but it's not just the negative ones. A lot of the noise we find, and people don't mention this very often, a lot of the noise in our head are, I have to be a great mom, I have to be a great wife, I have to be a great daughter. And I'm speaking on a feminine place because I am a woman. So this isn't singling out men. Men can be thinking, I need to be the provider. If I don't provide my family with this, then I'm a failure, right? There is a lot, not only the pressure that we're putting on ourselves because of our own beliefs, but the pressure and the noise we put in on our own heads because of society, because of culture, religion, politics, all of the noise going on around us, our peers, our family, and our friends, all of that adds to that noise. It adds to the noise that we've already got going on in our brains that go, you're not good enough, but I need to be a perfect mom. You're not happy, but I need to put all of my energy into my husband and kids. And that's the noise we want to quiet, right? That's the noise that we want to bring down. So I'd love for you to add on to what the noise is.
Yes, it's all of that. And it's another thing that always comes up with a lot of women that I work with, is that as women, at least, we find a lot of gratification in serving someone else and making them happy. And then we think, oh, if my husband is happy, like you said, if my in-laws are happy, my kids are happy, I'm happy. So we are limiting beliefs that, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not loud enough to be a leader, or, I'm not skinny enough or thin enough to be, or I don't look attractive enough if that is not my body image. These are all the narratives that are being fed to us by the society, by the culture, by the media. And so we never even stop to think, well, who am I besides these labels? Like, who am I? What, even not looking at our personality, but like, who am I? Like, what do I feel? And what is happening in my body when I'm feeling these things? So I think that's the noise, and that's where we're disconnected, because we're like constantly running with these anxious thoughts in our head that, oh, if I don't do this, if I don't work this much, or if I don't perform like this, I'm not going to be looked at in good light. So these are all the limiting beliefs, which is all noise. And then, because you literally can do the things that you put your mind to, we do create our own reality. And I'm not going to get into, like, obviously extreme examples, but you can choose to stand up for yourself. You can choose to feel more confident. And one of the reasons that we often don't feel confident is because we're just scared of people's judgment. We are scared of what will the society say, what will this one say. Again, limiting beliefs or our fears. And our fears come from the fact that we're just scared of being judged. We're scared of being left out. We're scared of being abandoned. And the fear of not being loved or the fear of being abandoned are two of our biggest fears, because as an infant, those were the two needs that had to be met from our parents. So if you look at it, everything in this noise, it does come down to these couple of things where we're scared of being left out, scared of not being accepted in the community, scared of being judged by someone else. And ultimately, all of that goes down to fear of not being loved, fear of being abandoned, not being accepted by someone. So then it just comes down to us pausing and looking at that noise and starting to recalibrate, well, why am I succumbing to these thoughts? And what does this mean for me in my life?
Yeah. Another one that I'd love to mention is you think about mothers, wives, mothers, husbands, fathers. I don't know how. So everybody who watches the show knows that I have my priority. I'm my number one, my husband's number two, my children are number three. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how many mothers that I've heard who have said, I'm only living for my children. My number one priority is my children. There is such a stigma that society has conditioned. And I'm going to say that again. Society has conditioned women to believe that it is selfish to put themselves first.
Completely, 100%. Yeah. Our entire self-worth, I think, depends on looking after our family and if we're being a good mom. And also on top of that, I was actually having this amazing chat with some girlfriends last night that it's like we've forgotten how to be feminine as women because we are trying to do so much. We also want to achieve well at work. We want to look after our kids. We want to please our husbands. We want to be in good books with our family. Like we literally feel, and it is the narrative that you feel that is being fed to us, that to be able to feel good about yourself, you need to be doing all of these things, especially when it comes to kids or when it comes to your partner. But also that, and then when you stop and think about it, well, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to fill your own cup. You have to look after yourself first. And by that, again, I don't mean just, having a rest day, having a spa day. It is self-care is deep. Like this self-worth, like work on self-worth, that you are allowed to place yourself before your kids or your husband or your family. Only then, when you are emotionally satisfied, when you deeply, in touch with yourself, can you really serve anyone else, or can you really be there for anyone else?
I'm beyond completely agree. And I'm actually going to record this on my phone too and upload it to TikTok. This one thing, because I have a challenge for everybody watching, everybody catching the replay. Let's say you have a best friend that you grew up with, and then all of a sudden one of you moves away. When that person moves away, let's say they're gone for 5, 10, 15, 20 years even. Let's just say 20 years. So your best friend has moved away and you haven't connected with this person for 20 years. Are you going to be able to just jump back right in? Or are you really going to have any idea who this person is anymore? That's what we do. You think about your relationship with your partner when you have children, right? Whether you're a wife, a father, or a mother or a father, it doesn't matter. When you have children, if you make your children the number one priority, and that doesn't mean that we're not making them a priority, but when you put them as the number one priority, when they're 18, when they're 20, they move out.
Totally. And that's what happens.
Are you going to know who your partner is?
Yeah.
Right? If you put your children for your partner, are you going to even know who your partner is 20 years later? You're going to wake up one morning, your kids are going to be gone, and you're going to be like, who are you? But never mind that. Who am I? If you don't pay attention to who you are, to your own growth, to your needs, to your likes, to your dislikes, to how you're growing as an individual, think about that best friend. 20 years later, you're not going to know who you are. Why do you think women struggle with emptiness, with being an empty nester? If you make your career your priority for 50 years and you go to retire, you don't know who you are after that 50 years because your life has revolved around work. If you have put all of your time and effort into a relationship and that relationship ends, whether that's through divorce, death, whatever, you're not going to know who you are. Now, there's trauma attached to that. So I'm not saying there's not trauma attached to that. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you put your everything into everybody else, it's like the best friend who left for 20 years. You're not going to know who she is.
No, and it's such a good way of explaining it, Melissa. I love that because this is such a good example to understand the disconnection to ourselves. It's like we're so busy. Obviously, we grow up with that narrative, but then we spend our life trying to please everyone else, do all of these things, achieve whatever. So we're naturally disconnected from ourselves. And then I've noticed this with some of my uncles actually recently. It's like when you retire, then you start to recalibrate your life and you're like, oh, now the noise has ended. What am I doing? And I'm bored and I don't know what to do with myself. Who am I? And what has my life been about? So and also, so when kids grow up, they do have to live their own life. So they do their own things. And often as parents, they can end up placing those expectations on kids, which is, I think, which isn't really fair because then we're all supposed to be our own people. We're all supposed to be our own individuals over here. And it's just getting lost in translation, which often leads to these feelings of disconnection, emptiness. Then we start searching for our purpose later on in life, which I think if it starts becoming a part of our everyday messaging, like a part of this awareness that our life is actually about our own soul journey. It isn't about anyone else, however closely they are related. It is about coming home to yourself. And then it is about serving it from that place where you are, where you are full, where you are satisfied and you're connected to yourself.
And another analogy, right, is if you have somebody who, let's say from the day you're born to the day you die, right, you have one person that is specifically there just for you to be your cheerleader, to be your confidant, to be your best friend, to be the person who goes through life with you, who's there to guide you and support you and love you and treat you great. Could you imagine having that best friend for your entire lifetime? You do, though. We do.
You do.
And that's ourselves.
Yes. And that's exactly. So I'd love to highlight two things here. So often when I work with clients and they're stuck in this cycle of not being able to find the right partner or, like the repetitive pattern of dating the same kind of people, it's a simple exercise and it does wonders. I often tell them to go make a list of the qualities they want in that partner and then be that partner for themselves. Like if you want your partner to be XYZ, embody that in yourself. If you want them to love you a certain way, give that to yourself. So you are your own best partner. So then when you meet someone, you're meeting them again from a place of fullness. And because you've embodied those things, and you're not like out there just seeking these things. So it's so similar to that example of, what you're saying. It's like, if you want a best friend like that, or if you want any of these relationships to reflect what you want, it's like you have to give that to yourself. So often what we're seeking from other people, the approval, the people pleasing, or acceptance, it's like we have to give that to ourselves.
Absolutely. And when we're in a relationship, especially when we're looking for our ideal partner, I have programs on that and trainings on that myself. That's one of the things I do. And with that, it's your ideal partner has nothing to do with them. There's literally, there are so many people out there who will make a list. I want them to have this color hair. I want them to be, they have to have a job, no kids,
have to be fit,
all of these, right?
Emotionally available.
All of these details, right? Funny, charming, all of that. Disney taught us that we wanted Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, right? The princess needs tall, dark, and handsome, right? But what ends up happening is if you focus on rich, tall, dark, handsome Prince Charming, you get a narcissistic a-hole that's not going to treat you well and probably sleeping with everybody else. But if you write a list of expectations, of things that you want in a relationship, it all revolves on how you want to feel. I want to feel loved. I want to feel safe. I want to feel supported. I want to feel comfortable, and I want to laugh, and I want to have fun, and I want to be spontaneous. It's all about you, how you want to be, how you want to feel. I wrote a book on relationships, and it goes hand in hand with your relationship with yourself. Every relationship that I had, and I'm not wearing my wedding rings, every relationship that I had growing up before my husband was, they all failed. And I took a look at every single one of them. And I said, what did I learn from each of these relationships that I can work to make better in my ideal relationship? And I took all of those and I created the space that I wanted to be in with my ideal partner. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Him and I fight because that's what we need. Him and I are very emotional and passionate. And so that aggression and, we feed off of that. And so we give each other that, right? And I'm not worried about being cheated on. I'm safe and I'm supportive. He doesn't, he might not believe in the things that I believe in. I didn't have my spiritual awakening and become a spiritual teacher or a coach until we were married for how many years are we at? So 5 years ago, so probably 8 years in. And he supported, he might not have believed in spiritual gifts and abilities, but he supported me. He said, right on, good for you. How can I help you? He supported me. And that was one thing I wanted. And I got that because I created the space within myself for him to join.
Yes, totally. I love that. And it's a very similar story with me and my husband as well, because he doesn't get everything about the work I do, and he doesn't have to, like, we can be different people, but that's exactly where I'm not looking, like I'm getting the satisfaction in myself because this is driving me. And, I respect that we're different people, and he supports me. But it's like we've been together for 13 years and I think it's worked so well like it has because we've never really, we have understood each other's need for space and all of that. We've had healthy conflicts, healthy boundaries, conscious communication, which is also why I'm in Bali right now for 3 months and he's okay with that. So it is about, but if I was just constantly looking for acceptance, validation, and, pleasing him, then I am not living my own life. I'm living my life for someone else. And someone who's receiving that, I think we can all feel that needy energy as well. And we can all feel that excessive anxiety or energy when when we're on the receiving end, which is also why most of the relationships which are strong and thriving, they thrive when both people are in their power, when both the people are giving themselves that satisfaction and acceptance and love, and then you come together, and then it's beautiful because you're both not really seeking anything, but you're really just coming together because it's fun being together, it's good being together.
Yeah. So going back to our topic, reclaiming yourself by removing the noise. So we've talked about the noise. I'm just going to quickly recap. We've talked about the noise being those limiting beliefs, the traumas, the, I need to be a perfect this, or I need to be great at that, the people pleasing, right? Even the roles and the titles that we love, being a wife, being a mother, being a father and a brother, even those roles create a lot of noise. So for me, the first step in removing that noise is feeling. It's letting yourself feel, acknowledge and feel whatever emotion, whatever feeling, whatever situation comes up for you, is just feeling it. Number one, 100%. Just feel it.
Yes. Feel it, accept
Sit with it.
Yes. Sit with acceptance. Yes.
Yep. Sit with whatever you're feeling, right? And the second part, not only just sit with it, like we said, accept it, sit with it, understand it, right? But don't let it keep you there. Right?
Transmute
you have a choice.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the ways, because we're talking about, reclaiming yourself and removing the noise, one of the ways that you remove the noise is, one, feeling it, right? Number two, accepting it. Number three, finding things that calm you. So meditation, I'm a spiritual teacher. I don't teach meditation the way that everybody else does, because I don't believe that meditation is to clear your mind. I believe the true purpose of meditation is to calm your emotions. When you calm your emotions, and you can just let those thoughts come in, let it in, and then let it go. You process them, right? When you calm your emotions, you're able to process. If you've ever, and again, I challenge everybody watching, if you've ever been caught up in the noise and that noise is causing a lot of emotion, you don't think about the solution. You don't think, well, I can do this and that'll help, or I can do this and that'll help. You don't think about the possibilities. All you're focused on is desperation of getting rid of that emotion. That's where your abuse of drugs, abuse of alcohol. So when you start getting into abuse, alcohol, drugs, sex, self-harm, when you start getting into those toxic behaviors, it's because you are desperately trying to either remove or replace an emotion. So meditation is quieting that emotion. Now, meditation can be driving in your car, listening to the music, full blast, screaming and crying, or whatever that looks like for you, right? It's releasing that emotion. Meditation could be sitting in a quiet room, having a hot bath, going to get your nails done. For men or women, boxing, physical activity, movement, art therapy, music therapy, whatever it looks like, anything that calms your emotions is meditation. It's 100%. Relaxing.
Totally. I completely agree with you, because this is exactly how I look at meditation. And I also teach yoga, and I love doing yoga myself, and I've seen so many benefits of that. And I also tell people that yoga is like moving meditation, because what that's doing is basically allowing you, and that's why it's like you don't have to have a proper process to sit and meditate. Meditation is basically like you can sit quietly, like just sit with yourself. Maybe you're in a cafe, maybe you're driving, whatever you're doing, like, and you're painting, all of these flow state kind of activities, which allow you to observe your thoughts. And like you said, like going from one side to another, that's literally how we describe it when I guide a meditation as well. It's your thoughts, you're just observing your thoughts, and then you are feeling your emotions, because like anxiety happens when you have too much going on and you have no idea how to stop and process your emotions and process your thoughts. So naturally, you're not looking at the solution. You're living in the past, you're living in the future. You're just you're just too engrossed in the same cycle, negative loop, which isn't helping you. And meditation, yoga, breath work, like these things are actually somatic practices which put you in touch with your body because they calm you, like they allow you to sit. This is why it's so hard for people to sit quietly and just sit in meditation. It's like they need to be constantly doing things to be numbing their emotions and distracting themselves from anything difficult that has to come up. But it's really just somatic practices. They help you feel what's happening inside you. They put you in touch with your thoughts and your emotions. So yeah, it's spot on.
Yeah. I'm going to be hosting retreats soon. And one of the things we're going to be doing is just sitting and feeling that emotion and just letting it out. You think of a volcano, right? And an emotion is energy. Emotion creates energetic fields in our body, right? So if you think of all the noise, all of the stress, anxiety, panic, guilt, all of those negative emotions that we've got coming in, even the positive ones that are creating all that noise. If you think of a volcano, that volcano is under pressure. So as that pressure builds and none of that pressure gets released, what ends up happening is that volcano erupts, right?
Yes.
Our emotions are like that volcano. If you're not processing them, now, whether you are bypassing them, because that is, if you're doing the positivity movement, if you're doing cancel culture, if you're doing anything along those lines, you are not processing your emotions, you're pushing them to the side. That doesn't work. You're actually pushing them down. And what ends up happening is, again, you're building more of that pressure because you're not releasing it and you're not processing it. Yes. That's why you will have breakdowns. That's why you start abusing, drugs, alcohol, self-harm, all of that, toxic behaviors, panic and anxiety, depression. A lot of people don't understand that emotional depression is what, we can create depression through our emotional well-being, right? Not just clinical. And so when we can, number one, sit with the emotion, just feel it, let it happen, and release it, right?
Yeah.
Another good thing to do to release that emotion and just to kind of quiet the noise is journaling, right? And if you're not good at journaling, just be conscious of what you're thinking. Be conscious of the noise. That's the next part, is really being conscious of, okay, I've felt the emotion, I've acknowledged it, I've accepted it and kind of let it move forward. I'm going to actually identify what that noise is. When you can identify what the noise is, that is one of the biggest steps to changing that noise and have it not affect you or impact you as much as it has been, right? When you know what noise is coming into your head and you start catching it, that's when you start to change how it affects you. That's what starts creating the control, the confidence, the empowerment, the belief in yourself, the self-worth, self-love, self-help. All of that starts with these steps into personal development, right? Is understanding your emotions and the beliefs.
Totally. There's so many beautiful nuggets in all that you just said. And I just want to add that it all starts with awareness. So when we have the awareness, instead of, let's say it's like when you need to up level, your body starts to show you. The universe is giving you signs. But then it's like, as a teacher, like you can teach, as a coach, you can tell people, you can guide them, show them the way. And it's the same like with the universe or our body, like if they're constantly giving us signs, but then if we keep trying to run away from them, we're not helping ourselves. So awareness is where it all starts. Like when you start becoming aware, that's the sign that, okay, I need to take the next step instead of now turning to alcohol or drugs or, any kind of numbing or even like excessive Netflix or emotional eating and things like these. And second, I wanted to add that it's, again, I spoke about this on my stories yesterday, that often when we suppress our emotions, let's say for women, for example, a common one that I see is that it's not nice to be angry. So, because you just have to be polite and dainty and you can't express your rage, right? So much resonance to that. And what happens is that when you're suppressing that anger in your body, a lot of my clients, like, they're clenching their jaw so much that their head's hurting and their jawline is hurting, and they speak at night, or they clench, they grind their teeth at night. So that is suppressed anger in your body, which is physically affecting you. And if you're not going to look at this and work on accepting and healing and releasing it, then this is going to manifest into migraines or, like your other diseases later on. And exactly like a volcano, it's going to erupt out as a resentment, as a trigger, as, like a violent argument. By violent, I mean loud, like it could be like loud roars or like constant arguments, bickering, all of that with your partner, with your family. And that is what actually causes that resentment. And that's, for those suppressed emotions, is what causes disconnection in relationships. So it's really like the work of accepting and healing and releasing is actually massive, because it has waves, like it spreads like waves in all parts of our lives.
That's one of the reasons why I work with men too, because this show is not just for women. So I'm going to touch on the male aspect for a minute here. Is men are constantly, and I mean constantly, told that emotions, crying's for sissies, emotions are for women. You need to be strong and tough. And if you think about the amount of people, even as a woman, how angry, if you hold things in, how angry do you get when you hold those emotions in? When you try to stop yourself from crying, from getting angry, from expressing any of your emotions, how much does that build up? And we wonder why men turn to aggression, why men turn into abusers, and it's not just men, but we question why men are so aggressive, so overbearing, so in your face. You think of how many emotions they're suppressing on a daily basis, because they're not allowed to show weakness through emotion. They're not allowed to be sissies or be feminine, right? Because as soon as a man shows femininity, it's, you get judged and ridiculed, accusations and rejection, and all of this, and that's not okay. So
no. Yes, go ahead.
Our entire identity comes down to our beliefs and how those beliefs shape our emotional health, right? Because our mindset shapes our emotional health. When we're not emotionally happy and we have negative mindsets, whether that is self-deprecating, whether that is losing yourself to the noise, we make decisions that are not logically thought through. We make decisions out of emotion. We make decisions out of fear, out of vulnerability, out of guilt, out of shame, out of trying to people please. We will make various decisions that are not for our greatest good. And it's because we are emotionally unstable, emotionally unhappy, and our mindset is not in a confident, comfortable place within ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, overall, all of these things, I think when it's like your mindset and emotions and they're both not in a very stable state, it's like a dysregulated nervous system. So think of it as, if you're constantly, let's say our nervous system is developed for fight or flight when we used to be, like our ancestors used to be in tribes and jungles when they had to fend off against the natural danger, right? So now if we are still, our circumstances have changed, but obviously we haven't adapted to it as well, because we're still living through that trauma and we're living that fight or flight in situations which are seemingly safe. So think of it as, you can't constantly be fighting a lion. You can't constantly be on vigil, on the edge, trying to fight off danger. But that's how we live. So if we are living in a constant state of fight or flight, we're not going to be able to make rational decisions or stable, calm decisions, which is why we often then, it can be like a cascading effect as well. It's like if something isn't going right and you're dwelling on that, then you're going to struggle to make better choices. And then we say everything's falling apart and I'm depressed and nothing's working out. And it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, so nobody get mad at me for this analogy, but you think of a dog, okay? And I'm going to use a dog as an example because we see it all the time on social media, through pet rescues. You think of a dog that's been abused, right? Or been traumatized. There are two outcomes from that animal, right? Either that animal is cowering in fear, doesn't trust anybody, goes along with whatever because they're just so terrified that if they don't do as they're told, they're going to get punished. So they do everything and anything, right? Then you think of the other path of a dog that's been traumatized is the aggression, right? It's either the submissive fear or the absolute aggression and terror, right? Yeah. You have the fight or flight. And we as human beings, we have that. We have that fight or flight. If you've been traumatized and you are emotionally scarred or in a negative emotional state, you're going to people please. You're going to do everything everybody asks you to. You're going to be vindictive and volatile. You look at bullies. A lot of the kids that are bullies these days are being bullied themselves in one way or another. And that doesn't excuse the bullying, but it gives insight into it, right? If you have a woman who is absolutely and utterly aggressive, there is something going on in her mindset that is creating that behavior. And instead of saying, hey, you know what? Let's talk. We've sensationalized it. You look at the typical atypical Karens right now, right? There's something going on within them, right? Don't get me wrong. If I believe that I'm right, I will fight. Absolutely, I'll fight if I believe that I've been wronged. But I don't automatically go towards aggression, right? But somebody who is within that trauma mind space will automatically jump to aggression or jump to, yes, I'm sorry, I'll do it right now, right? There's the people pleasing or the aggression. Those are natural progression.
Yeah, and that's exactly, they're both like classic examples of living in a state of dysregulation because you're constantly you're people pleasing because you're scared that someone will say something which rejects you or you'll hurt someone and then you lose everyone. It's like I was a people pleaser because that's how I grew. It's like I was constantly trying to please my dad. And if I wasn't doing that, I was scared I'll be beaten or I'll be thrown out of the house and I won't be able to look after myself. So being aware of that now, it's like, and having done some work on myself, I see that past version of me and I'm like, oh my gosh, like how was I living like that? And same with aggression. You're so right. It's like you can see when someone's like carrying a lot of pain. And again, I can go now, I look at my dad and I'm like, I can, instead of blaming him for how he was, I can see that he's carrying that pain and aggression because he's never released it. And so he's never transmuted the trauma that would have happened to him, which is why, again, coming back to what we started the conversation with, it's so important to understand why healing, working with a coach or working on these things, it's so important. It's like, it's imperative. It's not that, oh, I might need this, I'll do it when I need it. But it's like you start uncovering the layers and you don't know what all comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
No, I think we did cover everything. I think my last thing would really just be that as a confidence coach, I would just say that confidence is not some, like some fancy word that's out there. Our confidence is really just us realizing that we are more than the narratives that the society gives us. So if we just pull ourselves back from, I'm not this, I'm not that, I need to be this, I need to be that, and you just come home to yourself, that's where your confidence lies. And yeah, and I think that's kind of sums up what we were here to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my last thing I want to mention is reclaiming yourself, reclaiming your identity, reclaiming, by removing the noise. We've gone over many ways of removing the noise. One thing I wanted to mention is when you're reclaiming yourself, number one, look at yourself in the mirror. And I make my own clients do this, or I suggest to my own clients to do this, is look at yourself in a mirror. And I want you to think of the narrative that's in your head when you look at yourself. And when you truly look at yourself, what kind of things are you saying to yourself that's creating more noise, right? Start thinking about that and then stop yourself. When you notice that you're starting to get into that narrative of you're not worthy, or you're stupid, or what an idiotic move, or whatever that narrative is that you're playing in your head, you'll start correcting yourself before you say it.
Completely. Yes. I mean, I'm mindful of the time, but again, it's like this conversation is so good, and it's so good to be talking about these things to create awareness. But it's the same. It's like some people can't even look at themselves in the mirror and say nice things, and like they can't say I love you. They can't fully accept themselves, and that's hard. And that's where the work lies. When you can't do that, or when you're struggling to do that, that's like a big sign that you can ask for help, and you can start to develop that relationship with yourself.
Yeah. And you don't have to be perfect to love yourself.
No,
I love myself. I unconditionally love myself and everything about myself. But that doesn't mean I like it all. I don't like my weight. I don't like that I don't have perfectly white teeth. But I love myself. And I don't reject or ridicule myself just for those things that I don't like. You don't have to like everything.
That's such a good point. No, exactly. Oh my gosh, exactly. Same. I feel like I live in this state of acceptance, and I do love myself. I love how I look after myself, I treat myself, how I expect to be treated by others, how I draw my boundaries. But at the same time, I may not like the fact that I've had some, like physically, like I've had 4 amputations in one of my foot, in my right foot. I'm like, I don't like it, but I am living and I'm working on accepting that. But I still love myself as a human being, as a person. And they can be different things. And again, you don't have to be perfect, because I don't even think we can ever be perfect, because we are a constant work in progress. It's like, that's what our life is about. You don't ever get to a point where you're like, right, I'm perfect and I have nothing else to work on.
That's the day you die.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing else to work on. I have loved having you on the show. This is such a topic that feeds my soul. I wish everybody had the unconditional love for themselves that I do. It's so important. We are, from the day we're born to the day we die, we are our own number one constant. There is nobody who goes or should go from day 1 to day 0. It doesn't happen. And when we truly love ourselves, that opens up such an amazing journey that you wouldn't even think of. Because
completely. And
you're
self-love
not always.
Yeah, and self-love is not selfish. Like, let's just try to remove that statement from however it exists. Like, self-love is the most important thing before we start to venture out with everything else. It's like, if you've got you, you can do what you want to do and you can achieve what you want to achieve, but you have to have your own back.
I am hashtagging that right now. Self-love is not selfish.
Nah.
So for everybody watching, hashtag self-love is not selfish. Let's just get that going, because it is so true. Self-love isn't selfish. It is selfless. We need to start loving ourselves unconditionally and opening ourselves up to something so much better. All right.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've had a blast.
Same. Thank you for having me. I literally loved this conversation and could not have had a better start to my day than feeding my soul with this chat. So thank you.
Yes. End of my night. It's 9 o'clock here. So that is perfect. It's still Friday here.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, easy. You've got an extra day compared to me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Melissa. This has been a pleasure.
You are very welcome. All right. For all of you watching my Just a Family, if you want to connect with either myself or Parul, please do so. Our links are in the description. If you would like to connect with myself through a Phoenix Identity, who is our sponsor for today, I am offering you a $97 clarity session where we're going to get down to the bottom. We're going to start getting you some clarity, some self-love, some awareness of what your noise is and how you can start removing that from your life. So if you want to get started on that journey, absolutely click the link, use Clarity1 as the coupon code, and you get it for $97 instead of $149. So go and check that out. Link in the description. For all of you watching, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Like, follow, and share the show. Join our newsletter at justalivetv.com. And we are always looking for co-hosts guest speakers, as well as if you have a featured topic that you want to see on the show, please reach out. We are always looking for topics that need to be spoken of through this platform. So lots of love, Just a Family. Again, Parul, thank you so much for joining me.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.
All right, Just a Family. This is your host, Melissa Krechler. I will see all of you on the next episode. Bye.